And let's look at the text today. We've got a lot to do, and this is going to be a really, I think, a really good text for us. A really fun text to explore. And we're now in the journey with the Israelites to Sinai. And today, for the record, is January 27th. We are closing out this week the month of January. I don't know if that comes as a surprise to anybody, but a lot has happened this month that has been distracting and interesting, exciting, perhaps, invigorating for some, I'm sure. But we're in a moment in the text where it's got to be all of those things for the Israelites as they are on their journey. The thrill of victory and the praising of God for salvation have hardly subsided when fear, doubt, murmuring set in among the Israelites. As they faced the wilderness without food and water, they quickly forgot the miracles which have brought them out of Egypt and began to complain that Moses has brought them out of Egypt only to face certain death in the desert. But they have overlooked the possibility that God is able to miraculously provide for their needs, which, of course, he does. During the next 3 months, the Israelites will move eastward from the Red Sea. In this period of time, they will defend themselves against the Amalekites, a nomad people of Sinai and Negva region, who are naturally resentful of the Israelites' intrusion into their territory. Here, Moses will be reunited with his wife and children, who had returned to be with Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, while Moses was locked in a struggle with Pharaoh. While the two are together, Jethro gives Moses some advice, which leads to the establishment of a system of judges to settle disputes among the Israelites. The account begins as the people leave the banks of the Red Sea, in which Pharaoh's army has just been destroyed. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went from the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Mara, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That's why it was called Mara. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. There the Lord issued a ruling instruction for them and put them to the test. He said, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring you any of the disease I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin. That seems an appropriate name for a desert, which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Well, then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day to gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day, They are to prepare what they bring in, and it is to be twice as much as they gather the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, in the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us? Moses also said, you will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses told Aaron, say to the entire Israelite community, come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of Israel, of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God.
That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some gathered little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. Then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. Each morning everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person, and the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning. So they saved it until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day of the Sabbath, there will not be any. Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you out of Egypt. So Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it. Then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come. As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put the manna with the tablets of the covenant law so that it might be preserved. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of an ephah, for those of you that are wondering. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, give us water to drink. Moses replied, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test? But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst? Then Moses cried out to the Lord, what am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me. The Lord answered Moses, go out in front of the people, Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not? The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands.
The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, Give us water to drink. Moses replied, Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test? But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and your children and livestock die of thirst? And Moses cried out to the Lord, What am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me. Then the Lord answered Moses, Go out in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock of Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because of the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not? The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hand, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekites' army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of the Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, The Lord is my banner. He said, Because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Now Jethro, the priest of Midian, and the father-in-law of Moses, heard of everything God had done for Moses and for his people of Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away for his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her two sons. One son was named Gershom, for this, Moses said, I have become a foreigner in a foreign land. And the other one was named Eleazar, for he said, My father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses' sons and wife, came to him in the wilderness, where he was camped near the mountain of God. Jethro had sent word to him, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her two sons.
So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. They greeted each other and then went into the tent. Moses told his father-in-law about everything the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and about all the hardships they had met along the way and how the Lord had saved them. Jethro was delighted to hear about all the good things the Lord had done for Israel in rescuing them from the hand of the Egyptians. He said, Praise be to the Lord who rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians and of Pharaoh, and who rescued the people from the land of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods, for he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat meat with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening? Moses answered him, because the people come to me and seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions. Moses' father in law replied, what you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice. And may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to Him. Teach them His decrees and instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all the people will go home satisfied. Moses listened to his father in law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father in law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country.
All right. What jumped out at you today?
Right at the end, Moses sent him on his way.
Be gone with you.
Be gone with you. Father in law, go home.
You know, I love how that whole thing begins. I mean, here we have Jethro, essentially a nomadic wanderer, right? I mean, comes showing up at camp and says to Moses, you know, the way you're doing this, you're as dumb as a bag of rocks. You know, this is going to wear you out, and helps him reorder everything in a way that you know, people have looked back on for now thousands of years and said that is exactly how we need to order culture and military and churches, and I mean just bringing people into small clusters that are you know, managed in a effective fashion. This is the pattern that established pretty much all of Western world civilization, Eastern world civilization, hierarchical management of massive groups of people. And here it began with Jethro speaking into the life of Moses.
You know, Mark, as we're reading, I feel like a broken record, but once again, I'm going to tell you what to do it. And you didn't. And so there's a consequence. And it just keeps cycling around and around and around. It is interesting though, because at one point, you know, I think it was when you were reading, it's like the Lord said, I'm going to test them on this. Let's just see what they do. I'm going to tell you what to do. Let's see if you really do it.
And do you remember what that was that I was reading? It was about the
manna.
About the manna. And so,
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to give you enough bread for today. And I want you to trust me that you're going to have enough for today. And I kind of think, you know, I mean, how difficult it is for us, for me, to get my mind around it, because I've got enough, I've got enough, you know, cans of food in my house to last through a military siege. I mean, there's like, you know, it's like there's an abundance of food in our pantries, in our fridges, and you know, and in our stores that are just down the street. It's like it's hard for us to get our minds around, you know, trusting God. And then we look at the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray. You know, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Let your kingdom come here. Let your will be done here. You know, it's like there's this give us today our daily manna, right? To give us today the nourishment we need to survive. And most of us are like, I've never ever experienced that, the need to trust God for my daily sustenance. Uh, and yet that's kind of the call on our lives, is to be in that level of faithful trust of Yahweh, that we're going to believe him for today. And yet most of our days are so self-sufficient that it's hard for us, I think, to put our the weight of our full trust like they would have needed to back then. And yet, even though it's promised that that was going to be cared for in that fashion, they went out and started storing up stuff for tomorrow. It's like, I get what you're saying, Moses, but there's some more of these frosted flakes on the ground, and I want to make sure we have some tomorrow. So I'm going to gather what I need for tomorrow too. It's kind of crazy, right?
It is. And then to test them further, then he said, okay, on the 6th day, now double it. And even though before they're going to turn to maggots, this time it won't.
This time it won't. Now it's going to be fine, because now I've added preservatives. I mean, well, it's like, now I got you covered for 2 days. I mean, it's kind of how it sounds, right? And so trust me for today and trust me for tomorrow. Now, there's a couple things that are happening that are pretty interesting here. You've got God really describing a confidence and a trust in him for the daily bread, a confidence and trust for him for the water, and a confidence and trust that he's going to provide from the military threat. And the military threat was not an insignificant one. I mean, it doesn't say it in the text that we read today, but the Amalekites came, and what they did is, as they were traveling, you wound up having people we're talking about, what, 2.5 million people traveling across the desert, maybe as many as 2.5 million people, right? So they're traveling, and some are getting further and further behind. The Amalekites came through and wiped out a section of the weaker, probably the women and children and elderly that had gotten kind of left behind. And we'll pick up that in future readings, but I'll give you just a glimmer of it now. I mean, not in a glimmer sounds like it's a great thing, right? But I don't know, that an insight into what they were seeing and dealing with, and why God was so angry at them in let's see here, Deuteronomy. Remember the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt, when you were weary and worn out. They met you on the journey. They attacked all who were lagging behind and had no fear of God. They had no fear of God. When the Lord your God gives you rest from all your enemies around you in the land he is giving you to possess as an inheritance, when that happens, we're going to circle back and deal with this problem. And by the way, don't forget, that's the command that Moses later will give, that we'll see a little ways down the road. God's gonna deal with them harshly for the way that he's dealt, that they've dealt with the people as they were traveling out of Egypt. So pretty significant piece there.
Right.
Other thoughts that you've picked up on there? Thought it was interesting too, the idea that the manna. Do you know, anybody know what the word means, manna, in Hebrew?
Does it mean bread from heaven?
Not exactly. It came to mean that, but it's actually a manna is a Hebrew phrase, and I mean, you remember when we were talking about Isaac and what Isaac's name is? Isaac's name is laughter. It's haha, right? Isaac. The name Isaac doesn't mean laughter. The name Isaac is the very sound of laughter, and in a funny way, God says to the people, you get to call that exactly what you just called that. They went out and they said, what is this? That is exactly the phrase manna. Manna is the phrase, what is this? And so the people are like, so from then on out, what is this? Is bread from heaven.
Yeah.
Look at, what is this? Exactly. And you know what? You're going to get what is this today and tomorrow. What is this? You get to get 2 batches of what is this on the 6th day, and you'll have some of what is this on the 7th day. Which is just a fun. I mean, God, I think God has a sense of humor. So he provides what is this for the people as they're traveling through the desert to take care of their needs for 40 years. They get what is this? There's bread from heaven, and the bread from heaven, right, appears like dew on the ground, and then turns into frost of flakes, which I'm not exactly 100% certain, but I'm wondering if the guy from General Mills maybe read the Bible, thought, frosted flakes, what a great idea. But who knows? That I just made up. So don't take that one to the bank. But there is a part where in John's gospel where John kind of circles back around in the life of Christ and points to kind of this moment and says, hey, you remember that story, right? John chapter 6. They said to him, then what sign, because the people were coming and saying, Jesus, we want to see a sign. If you're the Son of God, show us by giving us a sign. And he said, you know what sign do you, then what sign do you do that we might see and believe you? What works do you perform? You know what? Remember, our fathers ate what is this in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. And Jesus really identifies this act in the wilderness as a pointer to him as Messiah. Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. They said, Sir, give us this bread always. And Jesus said to them, I am the manna of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. And what a picture that is. And we have this also the provision of water, which John kind of deals with a little bit later in the gospel when he says, on the last, the greatest day of the festival, Jesus stood and he said in a loud voice, let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them. And so this living water miracle and this provision of the bread of heaven, Jesus says, were pointers to the coming Messiah. And I think that's one of the reasons why God dealt so harshly with Moses when Moses goes to the rock and hits it with his staff, and living water flows from it, right? Later, what we'll see is that, after a number of years, I mean, Moses is sick and tired of the Israelite people by this time, right? He comes back, they're back in the same spot. The people are still grumbling about, they don't have enough. They don't like what they have. They want more. And they don't have water to drink. And God says, I want you to go to the rock that we went to before. And this time I want you to speak to the rock, and the rock will provide water. And Moses goes and hits that rock with his staff again, I think for 2 reasons. One, I think he's just sick and tired of these people grumbling. He's just mad. And he hits the rock, doesn't listen to God again, Todd. It's like, it's like God gives him very specific instruction. He goes, no, I got a better plan. I'll do it my way. Hits the rock. The rock does provide water for the people, but God says to Moses, you know what, Moses? As sick and tired as you are of these people, I am sick and tired of you not listening to me. You're not going to enter the promised land because of that. You get to see it from the mountain, but because of that, the consequence of that, you're not listening to me, is you're not going to inherit specifically the promised land personally. The people will, and you'll see it, but you know what? Not so much. But the reason why I think is really important, that rock is the symbol of Christ. And there is a moment where Christ is crucified once and for all for the forgiveness of sins, and he is struck by the people who proclaim to love him, and out of him comes this flowing living water. And after that, the people can always come to him and speak to him and receive living water. Never again will he need to be crucified or struck down on our behalf for our sins. What was happening was this beautiful word picture that God was creating for us to have for eternity. And Moses says, no, I'm just going to do it my way, and we'll strike the rock twice. And God was like, that is not the plan. The plan is for my son to be struck once, and for living water to come, and for people to experience that living water forever and ever and ever just by speaking to him. And so we have this incredible prophetic word picture that's happening in the rock that God is not so excited that Moses decided to go and violate. All right, amazing stuff. Let's dive though back into the questions. How is complaining to God an act of disobedience? What do you guys think about that? How does complaining demonstrate a lack of obedience?
Part of it, I think, is, of course, we think of kids, when kids do this to their parents, you're disobeying me. Part of the way I look at it too is, really a lack of faith. Again, that if I'm going to argue with you, if I'm going to question you, I'm not honoring you. And a little, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. I'm not honoring you because I'm not going to give you your proper place, if you will, because he's God, I'm not. He says to do it, I'm supposed to do it, and when I don't, it's dishonoring.
Dustin, Joy?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you on that whole dishonoring thing, Todd. I've got young kids, and sometimes they get really, really picky about the food that I have cooked for them. And it doesn't matter how many times they've had it before, how many times they've eaten it before, and how many times they've absolutely loved it before. Today, they might turn up their nose and say, no, I'm not going to eat that. Give me something different. And it's dishonoring. It feels disrespectful. And, there was an effort put into preparing that, only to have them turn around and say, no, I'm going to take your effort and I'm going to completely ignore it. And I want you to do it my way.
Yeah, it was funny. This week, Elizabeth was gone, and Gabe and I were home with Grandma and Grandpa, and I'm looking around to throw a quicker meal together, and I went out to the freezer and I saw that we had bought a prime rib for Christmas for the family, and I had generously deboned the rib so that we could have beef bones, barbecue beef ribs later. And so I made beef ribs, and Gabe said to me, he goes, I have never liked eating meat off a bone. I'm like Mom, and you should know that. I'm like, when when have you ever passed on meat, steak in particular, prime rib in particular, and meat on a bone? And when did you become just like Mom in this regard? Just like, oh my gosh. But alas, I wasn't going to be too upset about that, because there's peanut butter and jelly in the fridge, and I don't mind an extra prime rib bone. So I was able to overcome my frustration quite easily. But it's amazing to me, Dustin, how quickly our kids can create those moments that are really quite teachable, because there are so many ways in which I can, on a whim, decide that I'm going to be fickle just because. And I don't know that my being fickle about the things that God has called us to is ever an honoring deal. Joy, what do you think?
I see it more at school with the kids, how they dishonor one another with things like, I had one kid call another kid a slowpoke because he was taking his time with his tray, because we had soup that day and he didn't want to spill. So I had to remind the kid, you know, I'd rather have that student go slower instead of race back and spill his soup on the floor and have to clean it up because it was a mess. So these kids, even at school, they're dishonoring one another, and in that way, there's some disobedience. Because we've tried to teach them, you know, you don't do the name calling, you don't do this, you don't do that to dishonor other people.
So, kind of following that and taking a little different spin on it, number 3, why do we often run away from challenges instead of being courageous? I mean, it's kind of a parallel lack of faith or trust, right?
Yeah, and I think, I think for me, depending on what the challenge is, a fear of whatever pain or discomfort that may come along the way. When you step out into something like that, what kind of discomfort might it bring? And the older I get, the more averse I am to pain and discomfort. I think about my oldest kid, wanted to take me places on a mountain bike that I should not be going to, and the fear that often accompanies those kinds of decisions. But yeah, for me, I'm averse to discomfort these days.
How about relational pain? Do you think we tend to want to avoid that as well? I mean, you're speaking physical pain. I mean, physical injury, physical exertion, but there's an emotional pain and emotional exertion, I think, too, inside of this that can be easy to run from rather than move towards, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe for the same reason, that discomfort, whether it's physical or emotional or mental, just don't want to go there.
Yeah. Either of those last 2 questions resonate with anybody? How would you have felt if Jethro told you what he told Moses? What you're doing is pretty stupid. There's a lot of good ways to get after this. Why don't you try this? Or how do you think all of Israel benefited from Jethro's advice?
Well, I'm going to take a stab at number 4. I don't know that I necessarily would have been pleased to hear him saying that what I'm doing is wrong. But also leading up to this, Moses has spent a fair amount of time with Jethro, and there's a relationship there. So Jethro coming in and saying, no, you need to do this differently, is coming from somebody he knows loves him and somebody who he respects. And it's always a little bit easier to take criticisms from somebody who loves you and you respect.
I think that's a really good observation. Jethro had evidently earned the right to speak into Moses's life. It also goes, though, to in this instance, how positional authority isn't as important as relational authority. And here Jethro, while he didn't have positional authority at all, had the relational authority to recast the entire structure and system of the entire way with which they were operating, the entire governance of the people as they were moving through the land.
As one who's been in leadership positions in various places, I've had more than my share of people tell me that I'm doing it wrong. But you had mentioned at the outset, Mark, about the wisdom that Jethro brought to a structure that, on the one hand, I'm sure Moses probably felt, wait a second, I'm in charge, don't tell me what to do. But I wonder if he also didn't have a sense of relief when he saw the wisdom of what Jethro had brought, that, really, it's just too big of a job. And it wasn't a sense of, if you got to let your pride get out of the way maybe and accept that kind of wisdom from someone else. Mm-hmm. And good that Moses did.
Yeah. And as a result, I mean, we have an American governmental system that has, a president at the top and county commissioners closer to us and townships. And I mean, it's just the breaking it down into more bite-sized pieces allows it to be more personalized and managed in a way that really gets the affairs of the people cared for in a personal fashion. It's really a great insight that he brought into Moses's life that came at just the right time. All right, well, that's all we have for today. Todd, as we think about breaking the church down into bite-sized pieces, and we have, large to smaller to smaller to smaller, why don't you pray over our church and over others that they find themselves, particularly those who are listening online, connecting to a local church, and in particular connecting to a small group where they really can be cared for and their needs met in a more personal fashion.
Amen. Lord, thanks again for this time that we can be together and learn from your word. And Father, I shouldn't be amazed, but I'm amazed at the wisdom that can come out from centuries ago that still applies to today. Earlier on, Father, Mark talked about relationships and the importance of relationship. And we're reminded that sometimes the numbers are just too big. And I love that idea of breaking things down into smaller, manageable groups, but not just manageable, but the opportunity that we have to connect. And so, Lord, I agree with Mark that for those out there, watching or participating, if you're not connected, sometimes it's hard to connect to a big body, but to be able to connect to a smaller group of believers is a way that we can continue to walk closer with you. And so I want to encourage that, Father, that we seek out those relationships and the opportunities to connect and deepen our faith with that. Lord, I'm so grateful for this time. I want to thank you for Dustin and Joy and their willingness to come on and help us walk through this. Thank you for Mark's advanced study on this that we can lean into as well. And for all those that are here today, Lord, I just ask your blessing on them as they go through the day. And as we go out, let us be light in a way that people can see you in us and that they'll be drawn to want to know more about you. Thank you for this time, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Hey, if you happen to miss it, we commissioned Dustin a couple weeks ago as he's going out to be an associate pastor at Faith Baptist Church in Hampton, Iowa, one of our good Converge partner churches. Do you want to say anything about that real quick before we jump off? When are you leaving? What's your timetable? Do you need any help?
Leaving in just a couple of weeks. Yes, help will be requested a little bit later on as we get nearer to the date of packing the truck. Will be right around the weekend of the 13th, 14th, I think, for that. But it's been a very humbling experience, this entire process. And we've talked at length around here that we're not necessarily excited to leave. There's a lot of people here that we love and we are going to miss very, very much. But there is an opportunity and a calling for us to go somewhere else and to build relationships with other people. And that part we are excited about. But
we're excited for you. And let's make sure as a group that in these coming weeks that we are praying for the Burns family as they are preparing to embark on this new adventure. All right, gang, make it a great day. God bless you, and serve him to the best of your ability.
Thanks,
See you,
everyone.
gang.